Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is a full face of my old favorites. Recently, I was going through my channel and I was looking at videos from last year, early last year, like around this time last year. I was doing it for research on an upcoming video, and as I was going through the thumbnails and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't used that product in so long. I need to use that again. And then it was like every thumbnail, there was another product in there that I was like, oh my gosh, I need to pull that back out. I need to play with it and I need to have fun. So that's what we're doing in today's video. It's just kind of a chill video because there's so much new makeup going on right now and there's a lot of sales going on. I just wanted to do something a little bit different and not have it all be about the sales and the new makeup and the reviews and all of that. I wanted to dive into my own personal collection and pull out some of my favorites that I have that are so good. I want this to kind of inspire you to do the same thing, especially when we do get caught up in the sales and we get caught up in the new makeup that's being launched. It's sometimes we forget about some of those really, really good products that we do actually already have and own in our collection. So I hope that this kind of inspires you to do the same thing. I would personally recommend it because I have fallen back in love with the bronzer and blush that I used in today's video. And I'm going to reach for them more often now. So I think it's good to kind of sometimes go back and not use anything that's new. Use some of your old stuff and fall back in love with that stuff. So that's what we're doing in today's video, you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this type of content. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys want to see me do more of these videos. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into some of my old favorites. Okay, so let's go ahead and just jump into this full face of all of my old favorites. I'm kind of excited because as I was pulling them out, it was almost like it took me back to when I loved them. I don't know, it's weird, but we're gonna grab the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Rich Face Base. So this used to be my absolute favorite, and I still love it. Since I started using the Magic Cream, I don't reach for it as much, and I would say they're both very similar. You don't need very much. It's one of those products that a little bit goes a really long way, and the way that they kind of like melt into the skin, I don't feel like they sit on top of the skin. So one thing with primer, I'm not like big on primers. I would prefer something that kind of goes down into my skin, moisturizes, leaves me hydrated. I prefer a primer that doesn't set on the skin because I like my foundation to kind of become my skin. I like my foundation to kind of like blend into my skin. It seems like when I'm wearing a primer that like sits on top, I can't ever get my foundation to kind of press and become my skin. So that's the reason why I prefer a product like the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Rich Face Base or the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Cream. I love the smell of this though, and it just kind of takes me back. Like I haven't used it for a while and I love the smell of it. These type of products last me a really long time because I don't have to use very much of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to foundation. So as you guys know, I recently fell in love with the Givenchy Skin Caring Glow Foundation. This is one of my absolute favorites that I recently got. And in the video, if you guys see that review, I could not believe the way that the shade blended into my skin. It was like the closest shade match I'd ever had in a foundation. And I don't have any fake tan on my face. I fake tan my body to kind of give a little bit of a glow, you know, a little bit of something. But I don't have any on my face. As many of you guys also know, I don't know where the cap is. I gotta find the cap. I reviewed this last year. This is also from Givenchy. This is the Tin Couture Everwear. And I have this one in the shade Y310. This one is W310. This one is Y310. So we're gonna go ahead and shade match. I'm gonna be putting this one on today, by the way. This is Y310 in the Everwear. This is Warm 310 in the new Skin Caring Glow. So the Everwear, the yellow, obviously is just a little bit more yellow. Like the shade of it is a little bit more yellow than this new one. But they're both very, very similar. So the Everwear is definitely a satin finish. You get pretty good coverage, like medium to full coverage. and it lasts forever and a day. The new Skin Caring Glow, this one is more of a radiant finish. You get like a light to medium coverage, and it lasts on me though. Like, I'm not gonna say that it lasts as long as the Givenchy, but they're different finishes, right? So I feel like for being a glowy foundation, this new one does last really well, because a lot of the radiant foundations, they seem to not have that long wear abilities like a satin or matte finish would, right? For me, I can get 10 to 12 hours out of this new Skin Caring, but I sure love this Everywhere. So we're gonna apply this everywhere because it's been a minute. The key with this one as well is not to apply a lot. So the Everywhere, because you already get a full coverage, and I think that's just overall standard, when you're working with a medium to full coverage foundation, you never need a lot, right? So you don't want to apply so much of the foundation, especially if it's a satin or matte finish, because it's going to get thick, it's going to get cakey, and it's not going to look natural. So I'm going to go ahead and use this Pat McGrath foundation brush, and I'm just going to apply it and take what's on the brush and spread it as far as I can. That Bobbi Brown is giving me all the feels. Oh, it's been so long since I've applied that Bobbi Brown. I love it. You can see this shade blends right into my skin. It has a little bit more of a yellow undertone. Once I get like the rest of my makeup on, the yellowness kind of goes down. I like to grab a little bit off the back of my hand and just go in with a sponge and just really push it into the skin. The thing that you also want to be careful with is that this one does dry down pretty quickly. So you want to start working fast with this one. You don't want to give it a time to kind of set up. You want to get it pushed into the skin. I can't use a brush only with this foundation. In order to get the perfect amount and get the perfect blend and the perfect application, I have to push it into the skin with a sponge. There's a lot of foundations that I have that I can use a brush only, even though most of the time I prefer going in with a sponge with all of my foundations. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of foundations out on the market you can kind of get away with not having to use a sponge. But I feel like for this one, the way that it kind of dries and sets up, I need a sponge to kind of push it into the skin. You just have to work really fast. You can't, there is no time to kind of fiddle with this one. So my suggestion is, if you're somebody that doesn't want to have to work as quickly, I would just work in sections. So if you're gonna use a brush and going with a sponge, I would apply it on one side and then push it in with a sponge. And then I would move on to a different quadrant of the face, just so that you're getting a good application. And I absolutely have to wear a hydrating primer underneath it. So there's some tricks and tips that I have to kind of do when I'm using it. But once I wear a hydrating primer, blend it out quick, push it into the skin quick, it's stunning. But you don't want to use a lot of it because you really just don't need that much of it. Probably do my brows off camera because I don't really know if I have any brow product that I reviewed last year. Recently, I have been still loving this pencil, the micro one, the Brow Cheat from Charlotte Tilbury, and it's lasted much longer than the Huda Beauty did. So I really hope that this one doesn't run out as quickly as the Huda Beauty. I still can't believe I ran out of that Huda Beauty that quick. If you guys didn't hear me talk about that in my March favorites, I talked about the new brow product from Huda Beauty, which is an amazing small little micro pencil, but it was gone in like less than 2 weeks. It was gone. I don't like running through my brow products that quickly because you always have to make sure that you have a backup. I just don't have time for all that. So this one I've been using consistently since I reviewed it, and I have still quite a bit of this left. Now this pencil is not as small as the Huda Beauty, so I'm not surprised that I haven't went through it as quickly because you just get more, right? Because the pencil's a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go ahead and go off camera, do my brows really quick, and I will be right back and we will jump into the rest of the complexion products because I am so excited. Okay, so before we move on to the rest of the makeup, I want to jump into the eyes just in case I get any fallout. I can kind of wipe it away before I put my concealer on. So we're going to move in to the palette that I was most excited about last year. I remember when this palette came out, the pandemic had just started. And I remember it was just such a gloomy time, right? You guys remember when the pandemic started. I'm sure it's a day that we'll probably never forget. Not knowing what was actually going to happen. Them telling us to stay in our homes. We can't leave. It was a scary time. The excitement of seeing this palette, and it kind of distracted me from that scary situation we were in. It has a special place in my heart. We're going to be playing with the Mini Retro palette. I'm still waiting for Natasha to make a full palette similar to this, some sort of story like this. This is the palette that I never would have imagined putting these colors together, but it works. It's one of those that I never thought I ever needed until I saw the pictures, and I just fell madly in love with it. And because it was such a distraction for such a horrible time that we all experienced, we're going to go in and we're going to play with it again. I am very excited about this. So I kind of want to do a little bit of a halo eye and kind of use them all together. I'm going to go in with a small blending brush, and I'm going to grab this shade right here. And if you hear my dog, she is snoring. She's living her best life. She's a Shih Tzu, so she can't help but snore. She snores so loud, little. It's so cute. I feel so bad for her because you're like, can you breathe? Oh, it's just the way that their little noses are formed. While I'm doing this makeup, I'm going to tell you guys this story. So on Monday, I had to go and run some errands. I had to get my nails done, my little Easter egg nails, which are kind of fun. We have our golden retriever. So he is 10 months old. He will be a year old in June. His name is Rowdy. He's a golden retriever, cutest little dog in the world. We just love him. I have fallen madly in love with him. He's actually helped me a lot. You know, many of you guys know I lost my grandfather last year, and he kind of has helped me through that difficult time. So it's kind of crazy how animals will kind of just pop into your life when they're meant to, you know? And he is so good. He potty trained super fast. He doesn't chew up anything in the house that he's not supposed to. Like, he's a great dog until Monday. So my son moved out of his apartment. So he was living in a little apartment with his friends about an hour and 15 minutes from here. And he moved out. He had a queen bed in there with a frame and all of that. And so he moved to California because he's now doing summer sales in California with my brother, which was it was a hard weekend. He left us on Saturday, and I'm still not. The bed that my son has slept on in our house is like my husband's old bed. It's like a big king size bed. And so it's such a huge king size bed that when my son moved out of his apartment, we decided to get rid of his king bed and put his queen bed from his apartment in his bedroom. And so the king bed had a mattress topper on it. So it was one of those, like, it was probably about this thick. It was like an orthopedic mattress foam topper thinger to make the bed softer. So we had moved the bed out. We had moved the mattress out. The only thing that I had not gotten rid of yet was the mattress topper, because we were kind of deciding what we were going to do with it. We didn't know if we were going to put it in storage. I'm sure you guys know where this is going. So I leave to go get my nails done, and I come back, and up here on the screen is an image of my theater. It was everywhere. It was all over the place. He had torn it to shreds. All over the theater, all the way up my stairs, all the way on my main level, all the way in the kitchen, all the way to the formal living room. Yeah. And right here is a picture of him staring at me. This is the culprit right here. Look at that face. How can you get mad at a face like that? Little shithead. Took me about 45 minutes to clean it all up. He was just like, oh, I'm in trouble. Like, he knew. He is not a stupid dog. He knows. I'm going to move on to the green shade right here. So anyways, that was a fun little Monday. Monday was crazy. It was like, from the second I woke up, it was just madness until I went to bed that night. But he was, you know, he got in trouble, and I kept telling him that was a bad boy, and he kept kind of giving me those sad eyes. And he figured it out real quick that he was in trouble. He is such a sweet dog, though. He is seriously the sweetest dog. And he's one of those that's a lover. He loves to love. Like, I have a German Shepherd, which she's a typical German Shepherd, which, don't get me wrong, they're very loving, but they're also kind of like cats. they like to be loved. Well, my German Shepherd anyway, she likes to be loved on her terms. If she's not really in the mood for it, she'll let you do it, but she's just like, whatever. But if she's in the mood for it, she's just like, oh, love me, right? Well, Rowdy, he's always in the mood to be loved. He's like, love me. All day, every day, just love me. My Shih Tzu, she's kind of the little queen tut around here. She's older, and she's a little more quiet, a little bit more reserved, and it's just funny how dogs have their own little personalities, but anyway. So I'm slowly kind of incorporating the green into the pink, because I don't want it to get too dark, but I want it to have some dimension. So I'm just kind of putting a little bit of the green over top, and then as I put it in, I'm just kind of blending it out, and then I'm going back into the pink to kind of use the pink to diffuse it. I'm going to go into this shade right here, and I'm going to take my Smith 253 brush, and I'm going to grab this shade. It's a little chunky, so you have to be careful with it because it will have some fallout. So I'm going to place that right on the center of the lid. Gosh, that shade is so pretty. Then I'm going to take my finger and go into this shade, and I'm going to press this right on the center of the lid. That shade is so pretty. Now I'm just kind of fine-tuning it. We are now going to move on to concealer. And I have two concealers here that I couldn't pick between. So I think I might find a way to incorporate them both. So this is the Dior Forever Skin Correct, which I absolutely love. I have it in the shade 3 Warm. Then this is the Marc Jacobs Accomplice Concealer. Okay, now this is a stick concealer. It is a little bit drier of a formula. I like to bring concealer right along here, but with this stick concealer, it's too thick. This is the perfect concealer for like right here, directly underneath the eyes, like in the hollow of the eye. So I thought maybe I would use them both. I mean, why not, right? So I actually have two shades of the Accomplice Concealer. I have 33 and 39. Okay, so this is 39 and this is 32. You can see 39 kind of blends right into my skin. I like this shade. I recently bought this shade when it was on sale, and I'm so glad I did, because I felt like 33 was a little bit too light for me and what I like, but I've used it so much. And I could mix them both together. But here's the thing. This is a very, very thick formula. So a little bit of it goes a really long way, and my favorite way to apply this is with my fingers. Maybe use the shade 33 like right here to brighten, and then I'll use shade 39 like right along here, and then I'm going to use a little bit of the Dior concealer right here. I don't know that that all makes sense, but we're going to try to make it work. So I'm going to take my finger and tap the lighter shade, which is 33 right here. And I will blend it out with a brush, but a little bit of this goes so far. Like, this is not a concealer that you want to use a lot of because it is thicker. So whenever you're using a thicker concealer, especially on mature under eyes, you just do not want to use very much. You just want to do a very light amount. Now, I will go in with a brush and kind of blend it out, but this brush is from Sonia Kashuk. This is the buffing concealer brush. It has an angle on it. So now I'm going to pick up the shade 39, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this and tap it right under here. And I'm just going to kind of blend those two shades together. Now, typically, I would probably only use the one shade, but I thought maybe to kind of brighten the inner corner and not let that shade go to waste, maybe I'll just use it, you know? And the other thing I will say, this does not like to be used with powder. So if you put powder directly underneath your eye, I don't know that you'd want to use this concealer. I've had friends of mine who always powder under their eye. Like, I'm a person that doesn't really bring powder up right underneath the eye. But those of my friends that do put powder right up underneath the eye, they have all said that that is a not so friendly formula for powder. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to take a sponge and just go in and kind of push it in just to make sure that there's not a lot sitting there. And I used the tiniest amount of that concealer. I didn't hardly use any at all. Now I also want to mention that when I wiped off my under eye to clean up, I did go back in with a eye cream. So I keep a little bit of the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Eye Rescue down here in my beauty room in case I need to wipe anything underneath my eyes. If I use a makeup wipe to wipe underneath my eyes, I gotta put some cream back or else these under eyes will be dry. So I do want to mention that I did put on a little bit of eye cream before I went in with those concealers. Okay, now I'm gonna take this concealer from Dior. I'm going to wipe off the applicator as much as I possibly can because I really don't want a lot of this concealer as well because I already have concealer on. I am going to take just a little bit of that and stick it right here in this area and blend it out. Now this is obviously not a necessary step, but I just couldn't decide which concealer I wanted to use. I'm going to grab the Rephr number 2 brush and I'm going to go into the light pink color. I also wanted to mention that this pink that I'm using, it works for my skin tone. I do have to build it up. I have to really pack it on to really get it to show up. So if you're darker than I am, I don't know that that shade's going to work for you alone. It would be like a nice transition shade, but I don't know that you're going to be able to wear it alone. Okay, so the eyes are done. Let's go ahead and move on to contour. And I've grabbed this Charlotte Tilbury contour wand. I'm almost out of this. I'm going to actually get the darker shade, but I didn't want to waste it because this shade does work for me, but I think I will prefer the darker shade. This is the fair medium, which is the lightest. But like I said, it works for me, but I'm going to get the darker shade. But you can see it's got a nice pigment to it. But I'm just curious to see how the darker shade would work. So I am going to put some of this here on the contours of the face and blend it out. This is a very easy formula to use. And this was kind of like the first contour product I ever tried. And then I got the Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate Contour and kind of just become obsessed with that one. But also, I love the taralynnworx one too. That's such a good, like, balmy cream formula. But this one from Charlotte Tilbury works really well. And I think it's maybe a little easier to apply because it does have the sponge tip applicator where you can just kind of draw it on and then just kind of blend it out. So I just think for me, like, once I blend it out, it doesn't show up that much on my skin tone, because I do need the darker shade, but it is almost out, so I'm almost through it. Let's move on to bronzer. Now, I'm sure you guys are gonna guess which bronzer I'm pulling out, but if you guys remember, what was the most hyped up bronzer before the Charlotte Tilbury bronzers came out? Just think about it and take a guess. There was one bronzer that everybody was in love with. There was tons of shades, and it was really buttery and smooth and perfection. The Fenty. I love this bronzer. You can see I almost hit pan on this. Do you see that? Where I've got the ring around it? You can see I've almost hit pan on it. I love this bronzer. I don't know how to pronounce this, but this is the shade. I love this. Like, I loved this so much. And once the Charlotte Tilbury bronzers came out, then I kind of fell in love with that. And then the Gucci bronzer came out, and I have just never looked back. I'm actually going to use the Charlotte Tilbury bronzer brush. This is the one that has the little roll up. It rolls up like this, and then you stick it down inside there. I actually really like this brush, which is crazy because I normally don't like brushes like this. But I'm going to go in and just put a little bit of warmth right on the cheekbones. And oh, this bronzer is so pretty. I forget just how buttery it is. It's one of those like really beautiful buttery bronzers. And it just kind of like melts into the skin. In my opinion, one of the best formulas. It's so good. It's crazy how you stop using a bronzer and then you pull it back out and you just fall right madly back in love with it. It's crazy how that works. That's why I thought this video would be super fun to film because, you know, some of these products I haven't used in a while. And, you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. These are fantastic products. Okay, so before I powder, we're going to move into blush. And one of my favorite blushes from last year was this one from Natasha Denona. I love this little bloom. Oh, now here's the thing. It is crazy pigmented, okay? So, oh my gosh, you cannot use very much of this. Like, you have to use the smallest amount. And it does have a highlight to it. So as you can see, you have to just be very, very careful with it. And just apply a little bit right here on the face. Now this does have a little bit of a shimmering effect to the skin. Like you can see it's got some radiance to it. So again, you'll want to be very careful with it. But I love the way that this blush looks. It is so beautiful. It's so summery. I am obsessed. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, from the day I first used this Hourglass powder, I have never looked back. This has been one that I absolutely love. It calms down the shine. It buffs all of my makeup together, but it never feels like I have powder on. It's such an undetectable translucent setting powder that I've loved it since I very first tried it. And I love the packaging because I never get too much. Because I'm somebody that doesn't like to over powder or use a lot of powder, the packaging works amazing for me because all you have to do is just tap the back of it with like this part of your hand. I mean, it gives you the perfect amount of powder and you're good to go. So I am gonna use this powder because I love it. It has just been a ride or die for me. And I pick up just a little bit with my brush, tap it off, and then I apply it. I absolutely love this powder. And I'm still kind of testing other powders to kind of maybe see if I can find one that's similar to it. And, but for me, this just works. It just works. Now that I've softened everything up, I'm going to go into my Charlotte Tilbury powder. This is just my favorite powder for like right here in this area. I mean, you can see a difference. See how I just tapped that out? And this style has a shine to it. Now, some people, want to keep that shine. It's just preference. For me, I like to smooth it out a little bit. Okay, let's move on to highlighter. This one from Dior. This shade right here. You guys, I've almost hit pan on it. I stopped myself from continuing to use it because I almost hit pan on it. It's so dang gum pretty. I kind of wish they would just bring it out in a single. Like something like this, from Natasha. Just like bring it out in one single shade. What I love about this is that it's not like your traditional highlight where it's just like really beaming. It's like a super soft highlighter. Oh, it's so pretty. I just love it. Look how beautiful that is. It's so, so soft. And like kind of one of those where it's soft enough on the skin where you can't really tell you're wearing highlighter. It's just so pretty. Like one of those really soft powders that just blends beautifully into the skin. So for those of you that don't like a lot of highlight, shades that are with it are very beautiful. These are the top two shades, and you can see that they have tiny, tiny, tiny micro glitter, like tiny. But these two shades down here don't have that. These are more like soft textured highlighters with no glitter, but just the softest amount of shimmer. This bronze color is gorgeous, but this peach shade right here, it is absolute perfection. Okay, let's move on to lip. And I could not do this video without using my friend Mel Thompson and her collaboration with Christian Audet. She launched 2 lip liners, which have Kitten and Smooches. Smooches is a little bit darker. I'm going to be using that with the shade Beauty. This lipstick, you guys, oh, it is like the perfect tone, and I am so excited to use it. And I love that she named the Smooches. If you guys remember that collaboration, you know how her best friend is Kelsey Brianna J, and she named this lip liner after Kelsey, which is super cute. I love that. They are like the cutest. Here's the trick when it comes to using a Christian Audet lip liner. If you've never used their lip liners before, they're like budge proof. They're waterproof and budge proof. And once you put them on, like, they're not going anywhere. I mean, you gotta smudge them fast because they're one of those lip liners that once they're on, they're on. So I don't like to line the entire lip. I like to work in sections and blend it out. Because I like to blend out my lip liner, I need to work in sections. Because once this hits the lips, it will start to set up and it won't budge. You won't be able to blend it into your lipstick. And then I'll kind of take my finger and blend it out. And then I'm going to go in with the lipstick in the shade Beauty. I love this lip, and I also love it with the eyeshadow look. Like, it couldn't have been any more perfect. The shade Beauty has a tiny bit of like a cool undertone to it. It's just such a beautiful shade, and I knew it would go good with the eyeshadow look. And it was my friend Mel that created it. So, you know, there you go. This is the final look, and I love the way everything turned out. And I am so excited that I was able to kind of dive into my collection and pull out some of those that I haven't used in a really long time. I think I get so stuck in my routine of products that I just love. And it's almost like you start forgetting about some of the others that you really loved at one point. So I hope that this inspires you to go into your own personal collection and pull out some of the products that you used to absolutely love and then fall back in love with them again. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.